Hello everybody and welcome to BHS Corrugated. My name is Thomas Murr and today I would like to invite you to have a closer look at the future in corrugated industry. Let's find out more about the Box Plant 2025, the Box Plant of the future. And so I invite you today on a journey through time. Travel with me 1,000 days into the future. Come and take a tour with me through this corrugated box plant of the future. I will tell you how, and above all, why we at BHS Corrugated envision this concept for the Box Plant 2025. And by the way, I will also tell you what this Box Plant of the future here behind me has to do with this legendary soccer match. Can you still remember? The 8th of July 2014, the semi-final of the World Cup in Brazil, when the German team defeated Brazil 7-1. What a game! Somehow I have the feeling that we will come back to the game a couple of times in this presentation. The corrugated box plant of the future. You may be a little surprised that I'm not talking about the corrugator 2025, but about the entire plant right away. This is because we at BHS Corrugated are firmly convinced that in the future it will no longer be sufficient for each machine supplier in the plant to just focus on their own process in order to optimize it in the best possible way. In the future, it will no longer be enough for us to simply do what we have always done, just better and faster. In the digitized world of tomorrow, it will be a matter of doing things differently than before. This is the only way we will be able to respond to today's challenges. It's the only way we can at least partly offset the explosion in energy and paper costs. It's the only way we will be able to respond to shortage of personnel in our industry. It's the only way we will be able to reduce manufacturing costs, carbon footprint, and the cycle time in the plant. And most importantly, it's the only way we will be able to meet your customers' needs in the future. But let's start our tour of the corrugated box plant of the future. We will begin at the entrance to the paper warehouse, the first place where we will have to do things differently in the future. These are our conceptions. A fully autonomous clamp truck unloads the paper trailer and takes the rolls either to a conventional roll warehouse or to a fully automated crane warehouse. Removal and transportation to the corrugator is also done by an autonomous clamp truck. This truck selects the best roll in the paper warehouse and takes it to a paper shuttle. With the roll on board, the shuttle travels to a fully automatic peeling station, where the paper roll is peeled to the extent necessary. The roll is then safely and securely transported to the corrugator by the shuttle. Clamp truck traffic at the corrugator is a thing of the past. Rest rolls are returned to the paper warehouse by the shuttles so that the clamp truck can put them back into storage. Cores are also taken over by the shuttle and automatically disposed of. But why do we actually see the future of paper handling this way? Reason number one, lack of personnel. Paper handling today ties up to 4 clamp truck drivers, 1 per shift for the corrugator equipping, and sometimes even 1 more for roll unloading during the day shift. Personnel that is not available today, let alone what the situation will be like in a few years. Secondly, error prevention. People make mistakes. Having the wrong type of paper at the corrugator is probably the best known mistake, but by far not the only one. These days, we leave far too many decisions to our clamp truck drivers and expect them to always deliver the correct roll. The clamp truck operator is often a rest roll manager who is also expected to handle first in, first out. absolutely impossible. Thirdly, waste reduction. Nowadays, the waste rate in paper transport depends on the skill, the daily form, and the motivation of our personnel. Not only when handling the paper rolls with the clamp truck, but especially when peeling the roll. And finally, reason number 4, the most important one, safety. Nowadays, a clamp truck at the corrugator? No way. Accidents with clamp trucks must not happen anymore. So where are we in the development process? The autonomous clamp truck. Here you can see the first prototype of the paper clamp truck. We have set ourselves the goal of having it up and running by 2025. At the moment, we are still in development phase. And even though the clamp truck here in this video is still driving around a little bit awkwardly, you can be sure that we won't give in until the system is running smoothly. At the moment, we are therefore still loading the roll shuttles via an automatic loading station that is loaded by a manual clamp truck. The automatic peeling station. In the video, you can see the prototype. After the roll has arrived by shuttle, it is peeled by a robot. This robot initially cuts only the first layer of the paper. The roll is then rotated and scanned with camera inspection systems so that the peeling process lasts only as long as necessary. The peeling waste is automatically shredded and clearly assigned to each roll. If the roll is provided with core plugs, a strapping or covers, these are automatically removed by the robot before the peeling process starts. This prototype will be installed in Germany in the first quarter of 2023. The machine should also be ready for the market in 2025. The ice shuttles. We have already made considerable progress in the development of our ice shuttles. Here you can see a plant in the United States where the paper for the corrugator is supplied and disposed of via ice shuttles. The ice shuttles follow lines painted on the floor. Induction loops are not necessary. In the future, you can forget about the foundation work for underfloor tracks that was previously necessary and the associated costs. The system can be flexibly adapted to your plant situation. Currently, 6 of these shuttle systems are already in use and 6 more have been sold. As you can see, there is still a lot to do in the next 1,000 days, but we are convinced that we will reach our goal. 0 personnel with 0 human errors, reduced paper waste, and 0 accidents. But now let's continue our tour of the corrugated box plant of the future. From the paper warehouse, we go to the printing area of the plant. You may now be thinking, printing area? After all, printing is done with the flexo printing units in the converting area, downstream the corrugator and not upstream. Yes, this is still the case today. At BHS, we are firmly convinced that printing is an essential area where we will have to do things differently in the future. For this reason, we also started the largest development project in the history of BHS a few years ago and are developing this digital printing machine that you can see behind me here. Our goal is to print on all common papers, not on the finished corrugated board anymore. We want to do this on a working width of 2.8 meters in a first step at a speed of up to 300 meters per minute. We will use water-based inks for printing so that all common certifications regarding food contact can be met, and we want to be able to varnish digitally. Our final goal is to use the machine to feed its production directly into a corrugator, so that already digitally printed sheets come out at the end of the corrugator. Yes, We have often been ridiculed for this idea, but let me say it in advance. In a few minutes, you will see this inline production in a video. Together with Schumacher Packaging in Greven, Germany, where the world's first BHS digital printer has been installed, we have achieved the goal of digital inline production. But before we set off to Greven together, let me briefly explain why we believe in this concept. Why should digital printing on paper be better than the previous flexo printing process on corrugated board? Firstly, by printing on paper in the future and no longer using flexo printing units on the finished corrugated board, we will be able to significantly reduce the paper grammages used once again. The times when we used 120 grams or more in the outer liner and 80, 90 or even 100 grams in the flute just to achieve proper flexo printing will be over someday. In the future, the strength of the design of the sheet will be adjusted to your customer needs and not to the needs of the flexo printing unit. Secondly, print quality will no longer depend on the underlying flute. In the future, we will produce the flute that your customer needs, and no longer the flute that we will need to achieve a good print. Thirdly, the productivity of your converting POC will increase. You will concentrate on die cutting, folding, and gluing, and no longer sort your orders by ink in the intermediate storage area. Setup times in the printing area will be a thing of the past. Fourthly, goodbye to flexo printing units also mean goodbye to plate costs, costs for ink mixing systems, and all associated personnel costs. I would like to illustrate two further significant benefits by an example. I promised you that I would come back to the legendary soccer match in 2014. Many of us certainly watched this game on television. A total of 32.5 million people watched the game only in Germany. When we became world champions 5 days later, there were even 34.6 million people sitting in front of the TV. You know, I wonder what this lower number here would have looked like if we had lost in the semifinals. I will tell you what would have happened. 4 years later, unfortunately, we were not in the final. France played Croatia in the final, and just 21.3 million people watched that. So 13 million people less than 4 years earlier. 13 million people who don't drink beer at the game. 13 million people who barbecue fewer sausages and steaks. Hundreds of thousands of children who suddenly don't want a national team shirt after all, and so on. In this extreme example, the consumption behavior of millions of people and the associated packaging requirements are decided and changed within 90 minutes. And even if this is an extreme example, we have to accept that in today's fast-moving world, packaging requirements are becoming increasingly unpredictable. And we have to realize that your customers will expect you to be much more flexible in the future. Your customer would preferably call you after the final whistle of the semifinal and order the necessary packaging, which was previously unplannable. Just imagine if we managed to build a plant that was so flexible and productive that it could meet this requirement. What do you think how surprised your customer would be if you asked him after the semifinal whether you should additionally print the result and the 7 goal scorers from the semifinal on the packaging on short notice? No problem with digital printing. What do you think how surprised your customer would be if you asked him if he wanted a unique QR code on every single package, individualized packaging, perhaps to prevent counterfeiting of national team jerseys, for example. This is exactly what the digitized plant of the future must be able to do. It must be able to produce packaging that is optimally geared to the needs of the customer and not to the needs of the flexo printing. Manufactured in the shortest possible time, highly flexible, at the lowest possible cost, and also individualized to the customer. This is the Box Plant 2025. But now, I won't keep you in suspense any longer. Let's go to Greven to see the world's first digital printing inline production at the corrugator. Let me just briefly show you what our route will look like. Here you can see a 3D representation of the setup in Greven. At the top left, the digital printer, and at the bottom, parallel to it, the corrugator. We will start our walk at the digital printer. We'll then walk along this printer. We will then cross over to the corrugator, where the digitally printed web enters the corrugator as bottom liner. We will then pass by the dry end to finally pull the printed sheet out of the stacker. We are here at the digital printer, approaching the roll stand and splicer, machines that are well known to you from the corrugator. You see, also this machine is already supplied with eye shuttles. The machine incorporates all the options for pre-treating the paper, both a corona pre-treatment station and the option of applying a primer. Now we come to the first heart of the system, the central printing cylinder, which you can see here on the right screen. On the left, the currently to be printed image. Here we print CMYK with water-based inks. Let's go on the dryer units. Our goal is to really be able to run all prints at 300 meters per minute, regardless of the paper. This unit is followed by the second digital printing unit, in which we digitally varnish before arriving at the rewinding station at the end of the machine. So we can not only produce inline with the machine, but also generate digitally printed preprint rolls. Any number of orders can be printed in succession on these rolls, so-called multi-job rolls. These rolls are also transported by autonomous eye shuttles. As we are currently producing inline, the printed web is redirected 90 degrees via a transfer section towards the corrugator, which is located behind the wall. Here we are now exactly on the other side of this wall. The web enters the corrugator in the area of the bottom liner splicer. The system is designed such that we can easily splice back and forth between inline production and normal corrugator production. The printed web now enters the heating section as bottom liner and passes the dry end. Here we accelerate our walking speed briefly, because I will tell you later the details of what happens here to the web. And so we arrive at the stacker, which stacks sheets that have already been printed. This is the world's first digital printing inline production facility at Schumacher Packaging in Greven. Now, some of you will say, typical salesman. Shows us everything that already works great, but not a single word about failed printheads, not a word about ink costs, not a word about existing print restrictions, and especially not a word about the entire digital workflow which is somehow necessary for such a plant. Well, let's talk about it. Printheads. In the period of little more than 16 months since the printer has been running in Greven, we had to replace around 2% of the printheads. 2%. The issue of printheads is currently rather less of concern to us. Ink costs. Well, this is an issue that cannot and should not be argued away. In order to make digital printing competitive with flexo printing, ink costs still have to fall, and this can only be done in one way. Competition must be generated on the ink market. And this is exactly what we at BHS have set out to do. This is why we will qualify several ink manufacturers on this machine and thus ensure competition on the ink market. Printing restrictions. Yes, of course, there are still issues we are struggling with. Issues that all digital press manufacturers are currently struggling with. Printing white, for example, is currently one of such issues. There is no water-based white ink yet available. But you can be sure, we will also solve such issues. Digital workflow. You are right. Of course, a digital printer alone is not enough. The entire digital workflow in the plant, from pre-press to finished packaging, must be managed. And this is precisely why we at BHS have set ourselves the goal of being able to offer you a complete solution. In the future, a complete solution that not only includes the digital press, but also the digital workflow for the box plant 2025. You know, I'm not trying to convince you to believe that all the challenges in digital printing have already been solved and that digital printing will solve all the world's problems. No. But one thing is clear. Digital printing in corrugated industry is unstoppable. And we at BHS will not give in until all these issues have been solved. So we have to slowly but surely prepare for digital printing to come off in the corrugator. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to explain to you what you need to do this on your corrugator. And I'm going to explain to you what actually happens in the corrugator when you produce with digital printing. It doesn't have to be inline production right away, as you can see it behind me. But perhaps you would like to get to grips with digital printing and try out a digital printed roll. It may sound a bit strange what I'm about to say, but I assure you that it is possible to use digitally printed rolls on the oldest corrugators in the market. The retrofit solutions for this are on the market. It's nothing special anymore. So a 15 or 20-year-old corrugator is no excuse for not looking into digital printing. Today, I'm going to focus on explaining to you how I think running digital print in a corrugator is most productive. So how exactly does it work? Running digital print in a modern corrugator from BHS. Well, that is where this tool here helps us, the QR code. With the help of digital printing systems, you are able to print a one-to-one QR code on every sheet. This QR code talks to the corrugator, providing all the information the machinery needs to run digital printing in a highly productive way. Our goal with this QR code is to establish an industry standard, which is why we have disclosed the structure of the QR code we are using. When you scan this QR code here, you can download the specification of the QR code directly to your telephone. We invite all suppliers in the packaging industry to use the same structure of the QR code so that we can all benefit from this industry standard in the future. The QR code will open up possibilities for us in the future that were previously unthinkable. The information contained in the QR code could, for example, be used to tell the corrugator which sheet has a printing error, so that the sheet can be automatically rejected. Die cutters in the converting area could automatically adjust to the sheet. Every single sheet and every single package would be traceable along the entire value chain. Well, but how will we process digital printing in concrete terms? Instead of the previous marks, the digital printer will print a QR code on each sheet. Both the control line and the marks will no longer be needed. Due to the elimination of the control line, the print image can thus also be widened. By reading the QR code, the tasks of the previous marks are completely replaced in the corrugator, and the corrugator is informed when to switch from one order to the next one. In addition to the QR code, another symbol can be printed on request, a triangle, which you can see here, both in longitudinal and transverse direction. In the future, these triangles will be used to verify all cuts immediately after the cut was made and then correct them fully automatically. I actually thought about how to show you all this for a long time. The processes involved in scanning the QR code are so fast that they are difficult to illustrate. And what's more, I want to set a good example and encourage you to open up for digital printing. And that's why I ordered a multi-job roll from the digital printer. A multi-job roll with 7 orders in a row on one roll. Each order only about 60 meters long. Why exactly 7 orders? Let me surprise you. And so in the next 2 minutes, I invite you to take a look at a highly productive digital print production on a corrugator from BHS. And at the same time, I invite you to travel with me once again to the semifinals in Brazil. Have fun.
First corner for the German team from the right. Toni Kroos is taking it. Kroos takes a short run up in his white shoes and the ball's headed for the centre of the box. And it's there! Goal! Goal! Goal by Thomas Murr. He slipped through the back of the Brazilian defence. Unbelievable! That was very much like 2 of Brazil's recent goals. First against Chile and then against Colombia. At the back, they rushed forward towards the near post and the defence fell for it and missed Müller. And Müller scores the goal. Toni Kroos in the penalty area passes to Müller. He kicks it back to Klose. Klose! Klose! Unbelievable! Goal Miroslav Klose! That is unbelievable. In the 23rd minute on the rebound. The first shot a bit weak. Julio Cesar manages to block it. He bounces off him, but Klose's there again. And from 8 metres, he slams it into the net. I don't believe it. That's the record goal. His 16th goal in a World Cup. No one scored that many. And a direct shot. And 3-0! 3-0! 3-0! 3-0! Toni Kroos, straight off his foot, into the back of the net. It's party time. What a shot. Straight into the bottom left corner. Julio Cesar still had one hand on that ball, but he couldn't block it. He couldn't stop that one. It went in. It went in. It's in the net. And Germany's leading 3-0 here after just 25 minutes. Oh my goodness. I don't believe this. I can't believe what I'm seeing here. And again, watch out. A mistake. Kroos now has the ball. He passes to Khedira. Back to Kroos. He shoots. Goal! 4-0. 4-0. The Germans are running rings around the Brazilians. They're running rings around them. It's amazing. Down there in the penalty area, they're playing Brazilian football with the Brazilians.
This is what highly productive production of digital printed multi-job rolls look like. As you can see, the system cleanly switches through the orders printed one after the other using the QR code. If it were up to the possibilities in digital printing and the possibilities of this corrugator, we could have 1,000 to 1. And the corrugator would still be happily changing orders today. As you can see, the corrugator even switches from one sheet to the other without producing a single square meter of waste. At a production speed of 300 meters per minute and a sheet length of approx 1.2 meter, as we can see it here, this happens in about 2/10 of a second. Show me a flexo printer that changes the printing plate in 2/10 of a second with zero waste. So, this is it, the Box Plant 2025. A plant that produces packaging for its customers' needs and not for the needs of flexo printing. A plant that produces packaging highly flexibly and in the shortest possible time at the lowest possible cost. A packaging that can also be individually tailored to the customer. We at BHS will continue to develop to make Box Plant 2025 a reality for you. Thank you for listening.